Hey everyone, today we are going to talk about Playwright best practices for writing clean and efficient tests. So Playwright is a powerful end-to-end testing tool, you know that, and it lets you automate real browsers like Chromium, Firefox and WebKit. So when you use it properly, your tests become fast, stable and easy to maintain. But if you don't follow good practices, your tests can become flaky, slow and hard to debug. So in this video, we will focus on how to write clean Playwright tests in TypeScript or your favorite language, and write tests that will scale well in real projects. So first, let's understand what a clean Playwright test means. A clean test is simple. It must be readable and focuses only on one behavior. It should not test everything at once. One test should verify only one scenario. For example, a test for login success and another text for login failure. This makes debugging much easier because when something breaks, you immediately know which test failed and what failed. And now let's start with a simple Playwright TypeScript setup here. And I have here, this is the most basic Playwright test. As you can see, it opens a page and checks the title, and this is the most basic Playwright test. So now let's talk about the first best practice, using Playwright's built-in test structure properly. Playwright provides fixtures like page, context and browser. You should always use these instead of manually creating browsers. So this keeps your tests isolated and automatically managed. Now, next important point, use locators the right way. Playwright locators are smart. So instead of using fragile locators like CSS paths, use role-based or text-based locators. So here in this sample Playwright script we are here using here the getByRole. So getByRole is much more stable than others. So this is very important because UI changes will not easily break your script when you use getByRole. So when your HTML ID changes or other CSS or any other XPath you use to locate the button changes, you don't need to worry about this. All you care about is there is a button with the name login. That's all. So this is important. So now let's talk about one big mistake beginners make. So using hard waits. Never use fixed waits like timeout sleeps. For example, avoid these lines like going to the page and then waiting for the page. Avoid hard code waits like page.waitForTimeout for 5 seconds. So this is bad practice because it slows down tests and still doesn't guarantee stability. Sometimes a page might load in 6 seconds, so it might fail, or sometimes a page might load in 1 second, but the test still is hard coded to wait for 5 seconds. So it makes the test slow and brittle. So instead, always use auto waiting or assertions. So instead of that, instead of waiting for 5 seconds to check if the page is to wait for the page load, you can wait for something like wait for the page text in the page to say welcome. When the page loads successfully, you see a welcome text. Okay, then expect that welcome text to be visible. So you can reliably wait for things like this instead of putting a hard-coded 5-second wait. So Playwright automatically waits until this element appears, and this makes the tests faster and more reliable. Now, page object model means you create a class for each page of your application. This keeps your test files clean and reusable. So for example, you might have a login page. So create a separate class in whichever language you use, and you can create something like a login page, and then you can put the URL and then all the methods and all the utilities you want to use for that particular page. Now you can use it in the test. When you define the page object, you can then refer to that page object. So you can import that login page here, for example, and then use it in your test. So once you have the login page a reference, you can say login page.open. So opens a URL and then call the method in the specific method that is written in the page. So you can call that and reuse that method. So now notice something important. The test itself is very clean. All implementation details are hidden inside the page object. So like I said, the login method is coming from the page object, and you can see that whenever you need the login page, you might be using it in hundreds of tests, so you don't need to rewrite this login method. So it comes in, so you write it once in the page object, and wherever you reference a page object, you can call the method that is written inside in that page object. So now let's talk about test independence. So each test should run on its own without depending on another test. So this is critical for parallel execution. When the bad practice would be relying on login from another test. So instead, set up your own state inside each test, or use hooks. Now let's use hooks like beforeEach. So here I have a simple test here, and you can see here I have the hook beforeEach. So this runs beforeEach test in this script. So you can see here this is a powerful pattern. So before each test, it is going to execute the lines in the beforeEach. So what this means is, for each test written here, it is going to first go to the page, login page, and login, and after that you can run the test, the dashboard test or profile button exists test, and so on. So this is a powerful pattern. We avoid repeating logic, the login logic in every test. You can even convert this into a login method in your page object and use it that way. But always make sure that you use the hooks like this to avoid repeating logic. So you can avoid pasting these 4 lines in every test. Instead, when you have a beforeEach hook, you are essentially automating that login step. It automatically executed and then goes to each test. So that's why we call this hook beforeEach. So there are other hooks available, so use these hooks, and this is a powerful pattern. Now let's talk about another best practice: assertions. Always write meaningful assertions. Don't just check if something exists. Check the behavior. For example, you want the login button to be visible, so you can say something like, expect that there is a text on the page that says login successful to be visible. So this confirms the actual user outcome, not just UI presence. Now let's talk about another important one, is the organization of your project structure. This is very important. A clean Playwright TypeScript framework or any framework usually looks like this: a separate folder for tests, all the test files goes there, and a page objects goes into the pages folder, and all the fixtures, that folders has all the reusable setups, and the utils folder has all the helpers and the utilities classes you can put in that folder. So this structure helps your project scale easily when you have hundreds of tests, even thousands of tests. So this structure keeps you easily organized. So let's talk about reducing flakiness. Flaky tests are tests that fail sometimes without code changes. They pass sometimes and then suddenly they fail, and then when you rerun it, it passes. So this is a big problem in automation. To avoid this, you should always use locators instead of selectors. You should avoid fixed waits and wait for the UI conditions instead of time. Keep tests independent of each other. So now look at a more complex real-world example, Playwright test here, and you can see here that this test simulates a real user flow. So you can see that it is clear, it uses a page object, it uses the right best practices, getByRole. The flow is clear, it is clean, readable, and it is stable. It waits for the expected text on the page. There are no hard-coded waits here. So always keep your tests small and focused. So that is one takeaway. And let's summarize the most important best practices. Like I said, always keep your tests small and keep them focused, and avoid hard-coded waits like sleep, and always use Playwright locators like getByRole for stability, and use page object model for reusability, and keep tests independent of each other and isolated, and organize your framework for scalability. So if you follow these rules, your Playwright tests will be fast, clean, and easy to maintain. even in large enterprise projects. So that's it for this video. So practice these patterns in your own project, and you will immediately notice that your tests become more stable and look professional. So thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and I will see you in the next video.